Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. What we're going to be talking about today are 20 different things that you guys can do to get better at coding. I get asked quite often by you guys, like, what can I do to get better? And I figured I'd compile a list of different things you guys can do. By no means do you have to do all of these. I would recommend to do as many as you can. And I hope you guys find this useful. So before we get into the video, my name is John Vine. What we do here is we talk about software engineering. I try to help you guys become full-time software developers. If you guys find this video useful, leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel. It is completely free for you guys and it means so much to me, and you can always unsubscribe. So let's get right into the video. So one of the best things you can do to become a better programmer is to actually start a project from scratch and then see it to completion and finish it, right? I'm talking about starting from literally zero and then making it a live app. Let's say it's you're working on an iOS app, like literally put it on the App Store, or if you're working on a web app, make it live on the internet. A lot of people don't have experience of really seeing something through. And a common pattern I've realized is that people will hop from side project to side project, right? You'll get like 80% done, and then it'll get challenging, and you'll decide, okay, I'm just gonna work on something else for now, and then you never end up really completing a project. But if you can genuinely see things through, it's a very difficult thing, and it's a very big mental block to get over, because with every project, there's gonna be a certain part that is very challenging. You're gonna be tempted to give up or just start something new. But if you can get over it and really finish a project and see it from start to finish, it'll definitely increase your confidence and it'll make you such a better programmer, because you'll get exposure to a couple of different things that not a lot of people get to do, right? Not a lot of people have experience of deploying something live by themselves. So working on a project from start to finish is very useful. Another thing I would recommend doing is reviewing other people's code as often as you can, right? If you're gonna be working as a full-time software developer, you're probably gonna be doing this anyways, because when multiple people are working on, the same code base, there's gonna have to be code reviews. But what I'm saying is that by reading through other people's code, you're gonna learn different things, right? Everyone writes code in a different way. Everyone has different design patterns they use. Everyone has different even languages they could use to solve different things, and like one developer might use one framework to solve it. And so when you're going through other people's code, you're going to be exposed to many different things that you wouldn't have done, because everyone codes differently. And then you're going to be able to absorb knowledge from everyone's code that you read and overall improve your own code. What I would recommend doing is go on GitHub, find a project that you like, read the code, go through pull requests. Simulate the environment that you're like a full-time software developer, and you're reading someone else's code. You can do that on GitHub and kind of learn a lot of things from people that are submitting pull requests on GitHub and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely a lot of things to be gained from reviewing people's code. And the other way around, ideally you want people to review your code as well, right? If you can get a more experienced developer, if you can get someone who's really good at what they do to look at your code and find some bugs, find some places where you can improve, I think that's one of the best ways you can get better at coding. Because let's be real, when you're going to be writing code, especially as a beginner, there's going to be a lot of room for improvement. And it's really important to get this kind of constructive criticism, because you're not going to be able to catch it yourself. And if someone more experienced can tell you, hey, you might want to do this, you might want to do that, and just kind of build some habits that you wouldn't have learned otherwise, I think having someone review your code is an awesome way to improve at coding. And another awesome strategy to get better at coding is something I found online called the Feynman technique. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Feynman, whatever. I'll leave it down below. But basically what this is that you want to be able to explain technical concepts. You want to explain things in the simplest way possible. So let's pretend you have a friend. Let's pretend you have a friend. Hopefully you don't have to pretend to have a friend, but let's imagine you have someone that has no idea how to code, that is a complete beginner to all these technical concepts, and you want to explain to them something very complicated. If you can do that in the simplest way possible, then you can definitely confirm that you have a great understanding, right? Because if you can explain something technical to someone who has no idea how to code, then you obviously have a very good understanding of that topic. Now, if you start explaining and then you realize halfway through that, okay, maybe I don't know this topic as well, you can revisit it, go back to your notes, go back to wherever you learned it, kind of improve your own knowledge on that topic, and then go back and try to explain it again, right? And then, as you get better, as you'll be able to explain it, concisely, you're gonna realize that your own understanding of those topics is gonna get way better. And this is kind of a great way to confirm your own understanding while improving it as well. What you also want to do is iterate on your code, right? So when you're going to be working on a side project, and you got it to work, and you're super happy because it's finally working and it looks good and everything's awesome. What you have to understand is it's probably not going to be as good as it can be, right? And I've said this before, it's really important to kind of like, when you're learning how to code, to just get your code to a spot where it's just working. It doesn't matter, making it perfect doesn't really matter at that point. But that being said, if you really want to get better at coding and you're kind of more experienced, what you have to understand is, like, compare your code to a book, for example, right? When an author writes a book, they have their first draft, right? That's not what gets published. They iterate on it, they edit it a couple of times, they have other people look at it, and it really goes through a couple of different drafts before you actually publish the book. So your code is kind of similar. The very first thing you write, okay, obviously it's going to work, but that's not going to be what you publish, because there's definitely ways to make it better, to make it more efficient. And so basically what I'm saying is, you want to get into the habit of, don't just write the code and then push it. Kind of iterate over it, write it you kind of have to write it several times, because every time you go through, you're going to find a way to, make it better. And then, a couple of drafts down the line, then is when it's like, it's pull request ready, merge ready, whatever you want to call it. And so that building this kind of habit of iterating on your code, and not just like, okay, it works, let's push it. That's really important to improving your own skills as a coder. Now, the next step, guys, is to build side projects. Now, you guys know I've talked about this so much on my channel. Project-based learning is the best way to learn how to code. I think that if you can build a couple of side projects, now, if you're starting off, if you're a beginner, start off super small. I'm talking about, like, make a form where you can input your username and a password. That's it. Start that small, and then kind of go from there. And as you get more experience, work on more complex side projects. But basically, guys, building projects is genuinely the best way to learn how to code, and arguably the only way, right? The only way you can get better at coding is by actually coding. And doing it often, and there's no better way to do that than to find a project that you like, that you're passionate about, and then building it out, seeing it to completion. It's a great way to get better at coding, have something to put on your resume, and it's just overall a good way to improve your skills. Now, to piggyback on that, what I would say is, to really get better, you always want to have some kind of project you're working on, right? You always want to have something that you're doing, because it's very easy to let's say you have a full-time job. It's very easy to just work and that's it. And the thing is, though, when you're doing the same thing over and over again, and you're working on a certain set of skills, you might be neglecting parts of your own skills that you're weaker at. And if you always have some sort of project that you're working on, you can always be kind of working on those weaknesses of yours that you have, or kind of gaining experience with a language that you don't know and that you want to learn more of. And if you kind of always have a certain side project that you're working on and that you're kind of using as a tool to learn, I think that's a great way to get better at coding, because you always want to be pushing yourself. You always want to be learning new things, and a side project is the best way to do that. To always be working on something, you want to be coding every day, and that's the next tip. You really want to practice as often as possible. Now, you guys know that, like, to gain any skill, you have to practice. Like, to become a professional at any skill, I think it's like you have to practice at it for like 10,000 hours or something, and that applies to coding too. And so what you have to do, guys, to really improve your skills at being a software developer is code every day. There's no way to get around it. You want to be coding every single day for a couple of hours, whatever it may be, but you really, really want to do it all the time, because it's the only way to get better. And even now, I've been coding for 5-6 years. I've worked a ton of different jobs. I'm always getting better, and I can always improve. And if you're a beginner and you're not coding every day, then your progress is going to be really, really like slow, and it's not going to be as fast as someone who's coding all the time. I'm not talking about coding 8-10 hours a day. I'm talking like at least spend an hour or two, so that you're constantly improving, so that you know what you're working on, and you know what you have to work on, and all that kind of stuff. So you really can't be like working one day and then taking 3 days off and then working again, because it's not really how you're going to improve. Your progress is going to be really slow. So a great way to do that, to stay accountable, is to make a plan, kind of like build a calendar for yourself, kind of, and work around all your obligations. If you have a job, if you have, you have to take your kids to soccer practice, write all that down and plan it all out, and then find the time that you have available, and put that down on your calendar and stick to it. Every day from 7 to 8 p.m. is, I'm going to block everyone out and just learn how to code. I'm going to spend that time coding, or doing this course, whatever it may be. But one way that I've really found to stay accountable and to actually succeed at doing this and like code every single day is to genuinely have a schedule that I stick by. It might sound simple, it might sound like a no-brainer, but it really does keep you accountable. Another thing you want to do is contribute to open source projects. Go on GitHub, guys, find a project that you like, and make a pull request, either add a new feature or, you know, look through their issues, look through their bugs, and kind of fix the bug and make a pull request. And that's a great way to get better at coding, because, you know, not only are you actually coding, you're working on a project, like a side project. Not only are you actually coding, but you're you know, simulating the full experience of making a pull request and getting your code merged. And if you can actually get your code merged to a decent, you know, to a big project, or, you know, to a relevant project, that's a great thing you can put on your resume. That's a very, you know, it's a very impressive thing that not a lot of people have on their resume. So contributing to open source projects is an awesome way to get better at coding. You also want to learn more than one language. Now, this applies after you've learned one language and you kind of know the fundamentals and you've not mastered, but you've gained some experience at one language. Try to learn another one as well, because, you know, you want to be able to have experience using multiple languages, because there's certain things that one language can't do. And so having that experience and having that knowledge of multiple languages will allow you to work on many different things. And not only that, but like the more languages you learn, the better you get at picking up new languages, right? So the more you learn, the better you get at learning, basically. And if you can get good at picking up new languages, picking up new topics very quickly, you know, that's a great thing for programmers, right? There's always going to be something new that could improve your project or that can make your life a bit easier. And if you can get good at learning new things, it'll make your life a lot easier, and it'll make you a lot better at coding. You know, an easy way to get better at a different language is to kind of, you know, take a project that you've built and maybe rewrite it using a different language. Or if there's like a backend component, rewrite that backend using a different language, right? It doesn't have to be too complex, but you want to be able to gain experience using multiple languages. It really makes you a more well-rounded developer, and it does provide very valuable experience. And this kind of leads into my next tip, which is you want to be able to learn on a regular basis. You want to continue to learn, right? Every day as developers, you know, our knowledge gets older and older. And if we're not, you know, learning consistently, then, you know, over time, you're going to become irrelevant. Either that or the skill set that you have, you're only going to be relevant in that one skill set. And to branch out, you kind of be trapped in one area of technology, of coding, and you really don't want that to happen, right? And, you know, it's a good thing, it's a good idea to, you know, maintain a general knowledge of, you know, good tech practices of, let's say, whatever area of technology you're working in, like crypto or iOS development, whatever it is. You want to have a general knowledge of where that's headed in the future, so that you can stay relevant as a developer, so you can adapt and, you know, learn the new technologies as well, and kind of, you know, be able to work on cool projects, or to you know, get a job in that field, whatever your goals are. It'll be easier to achieve those goals if you maintain, like, if you know what's going on and you know where the tech is headed in whatever industry you're working with, right? And, you know, there's a good way to learn is to take a course, right? The next tip I have is to just take a programming course, right? You might not think about it. If you're more experienced and you know, you've taken courses before and you might be a full-time developer, you might think, you know, why do I have to take a course? You know, I'm a programmer. But, you know, there's always going to be a language you don't know. There's always going to be things that you don't have experience with, and there's no better way sometimes to learn something than, you know, simply to take a course. There's lectures, there's projects you can work on. You spend a couple of weeks, you know, a couple hours a day, you know, a couple of weeks, whatever it is. And, you know, at the end of it, you'll genuinely have gained a lot of knowledge, and courses are a great way to learn something. There's a lot of free resources online on YouTube, right? There's a lot of like paid resources like Udemy, and there's definitely like a wide array of courses. So I would definitely recommend, if you want to get better at, you know, a certain area of coding, if there's a language you want to learn or a framework you want to learn, there's definitely a course out there for you on the internet, and I would definitely recommend taking it. Another way to get better at coding is to use libraries whenever you can, right? The chances are, if you're trying to implement something using code, someone else has probably done it earlier, and there's definitely a library out there that you can use to your advantage, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, so that you're not rewriting all this code that someone else has done for you. And, you know, there's a ton of like built-in functions to a ton of different languages, like built-in sorting functions into arrays, and built-in functions to, you know, work on dates and strings and stuff like that. And there's definitely no reason for you to implement all these functions on your own. Not only that, but these libraries you're going to be using are probably going to be developed by, you know, professionals and maintained and highly tested and used by a lot of different people. So all of these different things kind of make it very reliable, right? On places like NPM, you can download packages and use them in your node projects, and there you can see ratings, you can see how many downloads there are per week, how many people are maintaining the project, how many pull requests there are, and using all that information, you can see like, okay, clearly if 2 million people are downloading this per week, then it's a very reliable project. And oftentimes, guys, these projects make your life so much easier. It adds things that you don't have to implement by yourself, which can save you hours, and have definitely saved my life many times. So I would definitely recommend, you know, before you want to implement something yourself, look online and find if there's a library that already does it for you, because chances are there probably is. And if you can, get good at finding libraries, if you can build a knowledge of libraries for yourself that you use, it'll make you a much better coder. Another tip I would recommend is to try to pair program, right? Find someone more experienced, or it could be someone on the same experience level as you, but ideally it would be someone more experienced, and then try to work together on a problem and kind of gain advice. If you're stuck somewhere, you'll be able to get help and kind of get another perspective onto how to solve a project. And not only that, but if you can get comfortable programming in front of someone else, that'll definitely help you in a ton of different areas around coding, right? When you're doing a technical interview, you're probably going to have to be coding in front of either 1, 2, or 3, whatever different developers that are going to be watching what you're doing. And so a good way to practice for that is to get comfortable coding around other people, and pair programming definitely lets you do that. If you can get over all this, like you think that you're being judged when you're coding and it's like kind of awkward, if you can get over that, then you'll have no problem succeeding in technical interviews. And I definitely think pair programming is a great way to practice that, and just get better at coding in general. You also want to be able to work on challenging projects, right? It's very easy to, especially if you have a full-time job, to just get very complacent and kind of work on the same things, but that's a very dangerous road to go down, right? Like I've said before, you kind of become trapped in kind of one area of technology. So you want to constantly be working on challenging projects so that you don't get complacent, and so that you're able to get out of your comfort zone as often as possible. Software engineering is all about getting out of your comfort zone. The more you can get out of your comfort zone and kind of solve challenging problems that you haven't been able to solve before, the better you're going to get at it. And the better your problem solving skills get, then the better you will get at coding. There's no doubt about it. Problem solving is the most important skill you can have as a software engineer, and being a good problem solver will definitely make you a good coder. Now, if you're like working a full-time job, it could be as simple as just asking your manager, hey, I want to work on something more challenging. I kind of feel like I'm working on the same thing and I'm not, improving. And more often than not, your managers will probably be very understanding and kind of give you something more challenging to work on. They want their developers to be good, to kind of keep on improving. And if you're working on challenging projects, that'll definitely ensure that. So, guys, don't just work on very simple things. Don't get too complacent. Always get out of your comfort zone and ask for more challenging projects. And a great way to solve challenging projects is to be able to break down problems into smaller ones, right? If you have a very complex problem that you're facing, you don't really know how to solve it, and you're kind of stuck, one of the things that I've had most success with, and one of the things that have made me such a better coder, is the ability to take a big problem, to break it down into smaller, more actionable problems, and kind of take one, it becomes 10 different problems, and then you kind of plan out how to solve each one. And before you know it, as you solve each one, you'll realize that, the bigger overall problem has been solved. And this is genuinely a strategy that has helped me a lot in my life, a lot of my career, and that I would recommend you guys try as well. Take a big problem, break it down into as many small things as possible, and just go one by one. You'll realize that you're making progress, like you're making instant progress, and it'll kind of make you less frustrated, right? It's very easy to get super frustrated when you're getting stuck and give up. It'll definitely ensure that you don't give up and that you actually follow through with whatever you're doing. Now, another way to definitely get better at coding is to genuinely use meaningful variable names and use comments, guys. It's when you're starting off, I know it's very tempting to not comment anything, to just write code, to use weird names and not use consistent naming strategies, right? But it's very important to kind of build these habits early on, so that you have them when you're more experienced, and that your code is genuinely readable. If you have all these, if you're implementing all these things, when someone else looks at your code, they'll be able to read it, they'll be able to tell you what's going on, and you'll genuinely be able to get help, right? But if your code is unreadable, if you're not commenting anything, you're using weird variable names, then no one's going to be able to help you. And not only that, but when you're in a full-time environment, when you're working with a team and code reviews are necessary and people are going to have to be looking at your code and understanding it, no one's going to be able to do that, right? And so if you can build these habits early on, it's just something that you won't have to work on later, and that you'll just be able to forget about, because these habits are going to be ingrained into your brain, right? Also, guys, don't neglect testing. One of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my career is to not really gain the experience of writing tests, of doing unit testing, of doing stuff like that. I kind of thought it wasn't important, and especially when I was in university and stuff like that, I really neglected it. I didn't think it was that important, but over time, what you guys are going to learn, and what I learned, is that tests are very important. There's also a whole programming approach based on writing tests first and then coding. It's called test-driven development, where you write all the tests first, all the tests fail, and then you write code to make the test pass. Now, this is a very popular way of coding, and it just shows the importance of tests. and that if you can write testable code and you can write tests that, you know, cover all the code, there's going to be a lot less bugs, there's going to be a lot less issues when you're pushing. And so I definitely think testing is very important, and you guys should definitely work on it and try to implement some tests of your own, especially early on in your career, because you don't want to neglect it. If you can get good at writing tests, you're going to be a much better coder. And as we get into the end of the video, you don't have to mention data structures, algorithms. You do want to get experience. You do want to know what they are and kind of like learn about them. Now, I'm not saying learn about them right off the bat. I would probably say kind of learn the fundamentals, learn about if statements and variables, all that stuff, and then kind of gain some experience with the language, and then hop into data structures, algorithms, all that stuff. What data structures and algorithms do is like it opens up certain topics to you, and it lets you write code in a more efficient way. Not only that, but if you want to become a full-time developer, eventually you will have to learn about data structures and algorithms, simply because, you know, technical interviews, for whatever reason, are all based around data structures, algorithms, solving different problems using this kind of stuff. So this is definitely required knowledge for technical interviews, and, you know, just it's not required right away. So if you're a complete beginner, don't worry about it just yet. But, you know, if you're more experienced, I would definitely recommend, you know, you have to learn about data structures, algorithms. It makes you a much better coder. It allows you to write a lot more efficient code, and it does prepare you very well for full-time interviews. And finally, guys, don't be afraid to break things. Don't be afraid to break code. You know, if you write code in a way that is completely risk averse and that you're scared of breaking things, you're never going to be able to make a lot of progress, right? Whenever you're adding a new feature, there's always going to be some kind of like anxiety, and you're going to be scared that things are going to break. But, you know, over time, if certain things break and like you make it better, then your overall code quality gets improved a lot, and you'll be able to make a lot more progress. If you're just writing things in a way that is not really taking any risks and is very conservative, the quality of your code is never going to get that much better, and your own skills aren't going to get that much better either, because you're not really getting out of your comfort zone. You're not trying anything new. So definitely to become a better coder and to get better at coding, you want to be like not afraid. You don't want to be like one of those people that just because you might fail, you don't want to try it at all, right? You want to be able to try new code, to break things often, and that's the only way you can get better, guys. Don't forget that. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This was 20 different ways that you guys can get better at coding. If you guys enjoyed the video, as always, leave a like down below, comment as well if there's anything that you disagree or agree with, if there are any tips that you have for any of my viewers, for myself, on how to improve at coding, feel free to comment down below. And as always, guys, feel free to subscribe to the channel as well. It's completely free for you, and it means so much to me, and it helps me out so much. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.